Today's episode of Lone Star Lawyers on the Varsity Podcast Network is brought to you by Varsity Search. Varsity Search specializes in helping small law firms in Texas hire lawyers and build great teams. So if you're thinking of making a move or your law firm is looking to hire, please go to varsitysearch.com and book a time to visit right into my calendar. Varsity Search, building great teams. Hey everyone, Daniel Hare back with you on Lone Star Lawyers. I hope you and your family are both healthy and safe. Now, before we get into this episode, I just want to again remind you that we are always excited and happy to visit with any of you who might need some career advice, career counseling, some thoughts on what's happening in the market, a resume review, anything like that. There's no fee, there's no cost. We just want to be a resource for you on those issues. And so if you would like to set up a time to visit, you can just go to varsitysearch.com/lawyers. And at the bottom of the page, you'll find a place where you can set up a time. I really look forward to hearing from you and visiting with you. All right, today we head to Austin, where our guest is James Howard. And James is a business and transactions lawyer with Naiman Howell Smith and Lee, a full-service firm with multiple offices across the state of Texas. And James helps small companies and startups, as well as large multi-state and international enterprises with issues including entity formation, investment, financing, company sales, as well as operational matters that impact their day-to-day businesses. And we are super excited to have James join us on the show today. So with that, let's hop into our conversation with James Howard on today's Monday Mentors episode of Lone Star Lawyers. James Howard joins us now. James, thanks for being with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Well, I'm excited to visit with you. It's good to catch up and see your face. It's been a while since we've had a chance to be together, so this is fun. Well, let's start off with a little bit about what's happening around your firm and your practice as it relates to COVID-19. We're recording this just for people hearing it later on June 11th, and so we're kind of in that trying to come out of it phase, but also in the last 3 or 4 days, cases and hospitalizations have been rising. And so who knows kind of where we'll be in the weeks and months ahead of time. But how has it been the last couple of weeks with this around your firm and your practice?
Yeah, sure. So, we, like most folks in Texas, we are, slowly but cautiously kind of trying to return to normal.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not 100% back. It's not February type days by any means, but I'm here in the office and I've been coming in for 2 or 3 weeks since Governor Abbott kind of started to open things back up. I just the thing that affects you most is just your day-to-day interactions, and that includes the office. And I wear my mask when I go out, and of course limiting physical contact, washing my hands, and that type of thing. So certainly just the normal non-lawyer, but just day to day being a person, is a little different.
Yeah, for sure.
But we're slowly getting back into it, and we've got, I'd say, probably about half our lawyers are still out, about half are coming in either all the time or sporadically. Yeah. And probably about the same for staff. So that's kind of where we are right now.
Yeah. Well, good. Well, we're talking just before we started recording this that it sounded like you guys had stayed busy throughout these few months. What has it been like in working with your clients and kind of the communication with them and the business as you've had it the last couple of months?
Yeah, no, and it's today is even here sitting in June, and like you say, who knows what we'll be thinking in August, right. And maybe nobody will be around to listen to this. I don't know, but sitting here in June, we're both from a lawyer perspective and a client perspective, things are better because I think we've adjusted, right? But when this really started to rear up in mid-March, lawyers were concerned, but more importantly, at least for us being business lawyers in my side of the office, our clients were extremely concerned. And at that point in time, nobody knew what the economic effect was going to be.
Right.
And nobody had a window into the future as to what it was going to look like. And so I think we, as lawyers, spent a lot of time with our clients in those early days, walking them through both the practical effects of COVID, which is, how do you set up a policy for kind of dealing with people and dealing with social interactions, because social interactions are a part of so many businesses.
Sure.
To let me help you digest these massive pieces of legislation that are being passed within a week, with the SBA rushing to put together regs and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so I was, it was funny. I think I worried about my productivity for about 30 seconds. And
right.
and from mid-March to now, I mean, I haven't stopped, and it's been around the clock, and really a lot of that is just helping clients through these times.
Yeah.
But where we are now in June, I think everybody has adjusted. We all have seen how PPP worked out. We've all seen how the CARES Act worked out. I think all of our clients are doing well on how they're dealing with employees. They've got policies in place, and now we're starting this phased reopening. And so I think a lot of our clients are saying, well, they're not bankrupt, and there are still revenues, and life has gone on. And so as we sit here in June, we're on the business side, looking pretty optimistically to the future. But like I said,
for sure.
who knows what's going to happen? So.
A lot of uncertainty. Well, and it's interesting to hear your perspective, simply because, so many, certainly more than not, of our guests in the recent past are on the litigation side. And so they've had obviously a different experience in the way that they're, the courts have basically been shut down and all that stuff. But you guys on the business side, the corporate side, have kind of a different perspective, and a lot of that has been ramped up rather than slowed down. So that makes sense. What just kind of from a moving forward standpoint, what do you feel like has changed, or that you expect or maybe hope will stick with us down the road once this is all behind us, that maybe we've learned or we've adapted to during COVID-19?
Yeah, I think the resiliency of at least here in Texas, the business community here is really impressive to me. That's both my clients. It's also just the businesses I know from my community. Mm-hmm. And I think had you told us in late February that we were going to shut down everything for 2 months, I think the response would have been, there's going to be nothing left.
Yeah.
And, everybody's going to go out of business, and we're, and the world's going to be on fire. And, I think what we learned is a lot of people hurt and are still hurting. But a lot of businesses were able to transition to this kind of different world, and they did so very admirably and fine. Mm-hmm. And so I think we've learned from this that there are things you can do in a situation like this, and you can transition to work from home. At least some businesses obviously can't, but many can.
Right.
And there are solutions. And so I think, something like this could easily happen again. And it's nice that, and this exact thing may happen again come fall.
Right. Right.
And so it's nice to have a blueprint now, we know we got to go work from home. Everybody knows what they're going to do. We know what our procedures are for social interactions and all that kind of stuff. So I think that's a good thing. And I've been impressed with how businesses have handled it.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Well, I've seen that as well here in Waco, and as I've traveled more recently around the state. So I think that's exactly right. Well, shifting from one pandemic to another, frankly, in our current issues and current environment, I did want to ask you about our racial situation in the country, and particularly as it resolve for the purposes of our podcast and our audience, who are mostly young lawyers, looking at this issue from a standpoint of how lawyers should be thinking about a response within the legal community, within their practice, within their communities. You and I are a couple of white guys. So for perspective, and people are listening that can't see us for context, but kind of what are...
Don't tell them.
No, I think they would figure it out soon.
Okay.
No, I mean, again, we're recording June 11th. George Floyd's funeral was yesterday or day before. So that's kind of the timeline of where we're recording if you're listening to this later. But what are some of your thoughts on that with regards to how lawyers should be thinking about this and responding?
Yeah. Well, and so I think on this issue, you've got to be extremely nuanced. I think, and lawyers are primed and to go, there's a problem. I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna address it, right? And so I think with this particular issue, the first thing that white lawyers need to do is they need to kind of step back for a second and do some listening.
Yeah, right.
And do some self-evaluation before you get in there and get your hands dirty. Because I think there's a lot of things being said that we need to really process first and give some critical thought to. And also we need to make space for Black voices, frankly, or voices of anybody as far as people of color go, because the law profession is dominated by white folks. I think majority of lawyers are probably white. I don't know that for a fact, but I'm making that assumption here in Texas.
Yeah.
And so we need to think about making space first for those voices. That's really, really important, and not to co-opt this and make it about us. With that caveat, lawyers of all races are uniquely positioned to interface with their city governments. And typically lawyers are just by default leaders in the community, or they're gravitated to those roles. I know, I do all kinds of stuff. I know many of my council people personally here in Austin, just through roles on the neighborhood association in my neighborhood and things like that I do. And just being a type A person, as a lot of lawyers are, I end up somehow in these roles, and you've once you've processed and you've listened, and if you think that there are policy changes that you can advocate for, as a lawyer, you are well positioned to do that. And I think you have a responsibility to do that. I would say adding your voice to those that are marching in the streets and that kind of thing, and listening to what they have to say, and then looking at the detailed policy and figuring out how you can assist, if you can assist in affecting that change, is really important. Because the lawyer is the one who can take the big picture, high level ideas that are evidenced by what you hear people demanding, and putting those into practical application through policy changes and through advocacy with your city leaders. And this is really happening at the city level. Yeah. And that's where the key changes need to be made, are at these local levels. And lawyers of all stripes, I don't care if you're a business lawyer, if you're a litigator, whatever you do, you are positioned to help affect that change. And so that's where kind of I see, at least for me personally, me being of help. I've noticed in like a rally we had here in Austin, there's other lawyers who are maybe more on the criminal side who are actually there physically at the rallies going, I'm a criminal defense lawyer. If you get arrested, call this number. I will help you pro bono. And I'm not going to do that because that would be malpractice. But those are direct things that certain lawyers can be doing, but all of us can probably be doing the thing that I just talked about, which is to listen and then to affect change where appropriate, or to push for change where appropriate.
Yeah. Well, I think those are all good thoughts. I appreciate you sharing, and hope that I'm sure by the time at which people are listening to this, they've already been engaged in this issue for over a month now. And so hopefully in that process, for sure, of what you just described. Well, let's transition. I do want to hear a little more about your practice. You're, of course, with Naaman Howell in the Austin office. Talk a little bit about the firm, about your particular practice, and what you guys do, what you do.
Yeah, sure. So as I alluded, I'm a business lawyer. I like to use that term instead of transactional lawyer, and It's kind of like an old Baylor thing. But at Baylor Law School, which is where I went to law school, there's always kind of this idea of, you're a trial lawyer, you're not a litigator, and so I think the corollary in my world is you're a business lawyer, not a transactional lawyer, and I don't know why that is, but
right.
But I'm with the firm of Naaman Howell Smith and Lee, and Daniel, I've known you for years, and you know us, but we're out of Waco as kind of our home office, but we're all up and down 35. We got offices in Fort Worth and Austin, where I'm at, and then down in San Antonio. And we're a mid-sized firm here in Texas, and handling all manner of things. We got a whole bunch of litigators in our firm. We got a whole bunch of business lawyers like me, and helping generally Texas-based clients, but some bigger clients, and just a mid-sized firm kind of role. So that's what we do.
Yeah, awesome. Is there anything going on right now with the clients that you work with most, or within some of the business law areas maybe, that are changing rapidly, or things that you're really keeping tabs on? Obviously, we just kind of went through some of the COVID stuff, which was an immediate injection of change. But sort of beyond that, and maybe before that came about, are there things that you've been keeping tabs on?
Legal technology is of particular interest to me.
Yeah.
I represent a lot of clients in the telecommunications industry, and then just in the technology industry at large. And so I've been doing these transactions dealing with, technology, software, software as a service, all kinds of hosted environments, equipment, all that kind of stuff for years. That's really where my practice has developed. And so I just have picked up, as part of that, just an interest in how we lawyers operate technologically.
Yeah.
Frankly, most of the time, not good.
Or don't. I was going to say, or don't.
Yeah.
Right.
And I've heard of lawyers who still are married to their paper files, and they won't, and you go, how do you practice like that? But
yeah,
I love those types of things, like DocuSign and what they're doing, and various hosting platforms. And then there's legal issues around them that a lot of lawyers like to talk about, like, oh, I want to talk about cybersecurity. But before you get to even that, it's fun just to understand, how does that work, and sure, how can it make my practice run more smoothly? Daniel, I got to give you kudos, because the way you've set all this up, to me, demonstrated, wow, you're using platforms that are really neat, that I hadn't even heard of, like this that we're talking over.
Oh yeah,
is a really cool platform, and then the Calendary kind of system that you use, and I'm just picking up just things like that. I go,
yeah,
how can I use that in my practice to make my scheduling and interactions with my clients more seamless? And so that's really what I kind of try to pay attention to and like to look at. So
well, that's cool. Yeah, well, and I'll ask you for a couple of favorites later as we close the show out, because I do like to highlight those new tools or new technologies that are really helping lawyers in their practice. So I'll get to your thoughts on that in a little bit. And then it's been great. It's been fun, actually, as I've been kind of getting this podcast off the ground over the last few months, to dabble and to learn some of these new technologies. And no matter what area you're in, I mean, there's always people that are making gains, making strides and stuff that are available to make things easier and make things more efficient. And so I think, you can probably spend too much time analyzing all of it, and it's not a great use of your time, but it's definitely a good use of some time to make sure that you're up on what the best is available right now. So it's a good conversation to have.
Yeah.
So I wanted to also ask you about just some advice for young lawyers. So something what's something that you learned as a young lawyer coming up and that is still part of who you are as a lawyer, you think's been especially valuable to you that you'd want to pass along?
Yeah, as a young associate, you're most likely not just going to be kind of handed something and just, at least on the business. And when I talk, I'm talking on the business side of the house. So I won't purport to speak for what happens in the zoo that is our I'm just kidding. In the litigation side, but you're not. If a young lawyer comes in and works for me, I'm not just going to hand them a contract and say deal with the client and get it worked out. Right? There's going to be a level of supervision. And for frankly, a period of time, I mean, it's going to be a while until I get a comfort level with your work and that kind of thing. So as a young lawyer, you need to understand, and I had to learn that your partner that you work for, or your senior associate maybe, is your client. And
right.
So when you deliver work product, you're not delivering something that's halfway there. You're not delivering something that, it's pretty much good enough. You need to deliver something that's client ready, and that's something that I and all of our business partners, I think, here really tell young associates, and it's something I was told and had to learn sometimes the hard way. That's the thing is when you're preparing work product, you think of the lawyer. The goal needs to be the partner sees it, loves it, attaches it to the email of the client, copies and pastes your email over, and hits send. And that needs to be the goal, I think, as a business lawyer. And it's going to take some time to get there. I mean, the first thing you do, it's not going to even be close, right? But if you're working at it and you're diligent about it, then your partners are going to help you get there. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be painful either. I mean, if you put in the hours, and if we can see that, we're not going to come storming in about it. We're going to tell you, hey, next time do this, this, and this. Otherwise, good job. Right. And but if you're not even trying, then it's going to be a problem. So, and again, I learned all these lessons too, and not that long ago. So,
right.
And I'm still learning them sometimes.
Well, right. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a practice, right? And that's part of the deal. Is you're always learning and getting better. What is there anything you've learned more recently that you wish you had known or had been told or had learned as a younger lawyer? Yeah, and to your point about still learning, I think you as a lawyer, it's easy to get a little too invested just in wrapped up in what other people think and what other people do. You want to make your client happy. That's a good trait. And you want to advocate effectively on behalf of your client. And that applies both on the business side of the house and on the litigation side of the house. Sure. But I think as a business lawyer, particularly, it's easy to try to want to make everybody happy. And everybody can't be happy all the time. And so there's times when you're dealing with and I do a lot of mostly business work, but I also have forays into business litigation, which sometimes I regret, but I do. It's the old Baylor lawyer in me. You can't get it out, but right. You can't always make everybody happy. And particularly when you're dealing with other counsel and that kind of thing. And sometimes you just got to accept that and not dwell on it and not let it take over everything else. And that's a lesson, honestly, I'm still learning or still trying to beat into myself. Yeah. And it's hard, but it is important to get there. Yeah. So, yeah. Well, it seems like it's that. It's almost like I feel like we as lawyers, and I won't speak for you, but I think what I'm hearing you say, and I've seen this in other lawyers too, like we have this. If everybody's not happy, I think one of the things we feel like, especially on the business side, kind of, if you don't look at it that way, is that, well, surely there is a solution out there that could make everyone happy, and I just haven't found it yet, and therefore, like I haven't done a good enough job. Yeah. Like if I would work a little harder, spend a little more time on this, I would find the right solution that does make everyone happy, and that sometimes, right, just as you're saying, does not exist.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I was reviewing a contract just yesterday, and the the lawyer, we're on round 100 of red lines, and the lawyer had kind of made some progress on some areas and had tried to make compromises. And so I started thinking to myself, well, okay, how can we make compromises on what we want to do? And there were some things where it was reasonable to do so, but after having worked through all that and talking to the client, I realized, some of this stuff, it's just the answer is no. And you don't try to create a solution when really it's time for us to get on the phone and have a hard conversation about why this needs to be the way it is. And I think as a business lawyer, you're kind of sometimes going, well, maybe we can compromise, and maybe you're a little bit conflict adverse. But sometimes you just got to put that aside and go, no, what the client is saying makes sense. I know that this is the way it needs to be. And so I'm going to be a forceful advocate, and I don't care if it results in a hard conversation. It's just something that needs to be done.
Yeah.
And so that happens, and it's something that, again, I am still learning.
Sure.
But
absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about hiring. We've worked together on this in the past. I'm curious, what are a couple of key things that when you're hiring a new associate, and most of the people listening to this are out in practice maybe a couple years to be on the lateral side, but what are some things that you're looking for that are keys, maybe on a resume and a writing sample and a cover letter at the document stage when you're just kind of looking over documents? What's important for you?
Yeah, I think for me, well, number one, if you're applying for a business job, you have got to read and reread and triple read and quadruple read your resume and cover letter, because if I see a typo, that's an easy no, right?
Easy, right?
And
okay.
and because that's just so important, being detail oriented. Again, on the litigation side of the house, they may not even see it, and they may not care if they did. But if I'm looking for somebody who I'm wanting to actually catch typos and that kind of thing in a document and be detail oriented, that's it. I mean, if they're otherwise perfect, maybe we don't toss their resume, but that's a big problem. So you've got to look at that.
Yeah.
And then just more practically understand, I have both applied for jobs and done the hiring process, and I'm one of our hiring partners here.
Yeah.
For the Austin office. But having been on this side of the house, on the hiring side, you got to realize, write to your reader, and getting like a 3-page resume that's got 500 bullets in it that are all 8-point font, along with a cover letter and a transcript that's like 10 pages. I'm going to read like 0.1% of that, like where you went to school, what your class rank was, and where you're currently working.
Yeah.
I mean, you can say what you need to say in one page, and you can make it really obvious. Like, here is why I'm good for the job, but you've got to do that. You've got to kind of put that up front. Don't put your education at the bottom. I've seen resumes that do that. Don't like hide what you're currently doing where you can't tell. Just be upfront with kind of what your stats are and what makes you good for the job. And that's going to be helpful. So,
yeah, awesome. Well, good. And then when you shift to the interview phase and you're talking to people, whether it's now by Zoom or then in person, maybe at some point, what are a couple of ways that people can stand out and impress you in an interview? Maybe what are a couple of ways that or mistakes that people make in interviews?
Sure. So this is hard to do, and I struggled with it too in the interview when I was interviewing for jobs. But people can just be overly stiff, and they're talking and interacting in a way that people don't talk and interact way in. And I'm not saying come in jeans and put your feet up on the table and that kind of thing, but I mean, you can be professional but also be conversational. And as a business lawyer, we're looking for somebody who's got the skills. We're also looking for somebody who can interact with clients. And as a business lawyer, you're doing a lot of your client interaction, not like on the phone talking about an upcoming lawsuit, but you're doing it in the context of deals that may occur in restaurants, it may occur in various places. You might go to the bar, for a drink with your client. There's things that you want to do, and you want to be a likable person that, people want to be around. We kind of look for that quality when we're interviewing. And I think that's really important for a business lawyer. As far as mistakes, I've, honestly, my mistakes are worse than anyone I've ever seen with somebody I was interviewing. But when I did OCI, this is just an anecdote. I don't know how much relevance it has, but when I did OCI back at Baylor, I interviewed with Naaman Howell and for summer clerkship. And it was a couple of the Waco guys there. It was Roy Barrett and somebody else. I can't remember. And it might have been Hayes Fuller. Yeah. And we went through the whole interview process. And they go, well, why do you want to work in Waco? And I said, oh God, no, I don't want to work in Waco. I thought I could go to Austin. And they go, well, we'll send your resume on to Austin.
To the Austin.
I got a rejection letter the next day that I still have for my partner. My partner, Dennis Donnelly, here in the Austin office. I've got a rejection letter saying thanks, but no thanks. And then I went on my merry way, and then circularly ended up back here through a lateral process years later. Funny. But you gotta know your audience, and I was just dumb and wasn't thinking, well, these guys, they don't want to hear this guy talk about how he wants to get out of Waco as soon as
you are not the first nor the last to do that. But at the same time, look, if you had absolutely no desire to be in Waco, then that was the right answer. It's just, it's tough. But it's funny because, on a related note to that, one of the things that I know sometimes happens with candidates is, they don't do enough research into the practice areas that the firm offers, and then they might say something like, oh, I want to do bankruptcy, or I want to do IP or something like that, and that's just something the firm doesn't offer. And so it's a combo problem of, one, we practically just don't have what you want, so it's not a good fit. But secondly, it also shows you didn't prepare well, for the interview. And so
that's absolutely right. And I've seen both sides where it's like, I've talked with people who they're talking about things I have on my bio that are so buried down that I'm like, have you been following me? And then I've talked to people talking about how they want to do patent work, and I'm going, we don't, it's really funny. It's I've seen both sides. But yeah, you're right. Better prepared is definitely better than not. So.
Well, man, we've gone through our time, and I really appreciate you being with us. Is there anything that we haven't touched on yet that you would want to share with the lawyers in the audience?
I would just say, and I know everybody probably says this, but you've got to watch your mental health in this practice. Yeah. Very, very important. And I tend to overwork. And I think a lot of lawyers do that, but you have got to find ways to unplug and turn it off. And even as an associate, I'm not saying it's not something. I kind of had the mindset of you got to earn that, but I think even early on there are ways where you can be protective of your mental health. And I turn off notifications. I can't not read an email. I learned that a long time ago, so I turn off notifications. Once I decide I'm done at the night, I tend to turn off notifications so I can get, 7-8 hours of sleep and hashtag no kids in my life and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, whatever you got to do, if it's a hobby, if it's some combination of all that, don't lose sight of those things. And then of course, just shout out to TLAP. You've got a resource there. Don't be ashamed to use it. And I don't think enough lawyers can say that. And so I just want to join the chorus of people reminding folks, hey, come on, just at the end of the day, this stuff's important. You got to take care of your clients, but you also have to take care of yourself.
No, I think that's really good. And look, I mean, at the end of the day, you really can't serve your clients unless you are healthy, right? I mean, you have to make sure you're healthy first before you can serve your clients well. So that's good advice, and I appreciate you saying it. All right, we have our rapid fire questions to end our time.
Okay.
If you're ready for those, we'll launch in here.
Okay.
All right, name the one trait or characteristic you most want to see in an associate.
Interested.
Interested. I like it. What habit has been key to your success?
Go one more step.
One more step. Good. Okay, here we go. I promised this earlier. Favorite app or productivity tool?
So mine is my laptop dock. I've got docks set up at my house. I've got one here at my work. My laptop goes everywhere I go. So whenever I'm in a place where I can normally work, ka-chunk, I click it in. And then I carry that thing around. I know that's kind of old school, but that's helped me so much because I need my laptop if I'm going to be working, and I like the portability. So
absolutely,
that's it.
Yeah, no, I've got one here as well. I actually went through a couple of them to find one I liked and worked well. So it's important, no doubt. Yeah. Your favorite social distancing activity? What have you been up to the last couple months?
Oh man, I've been doing a lot of bicycling.
A lot of bicycling. Good.
Yeah, I'm such an Austinite. I got to get out there on the bike and go get an espresso and pay too much for beer somewhere. So
there you go. We got my daughter a bike, and she's been learning to ride it, no training wheels and all that. And so, but I don't have one. And so for a while that worked fine because I was just walking alongside her, kind of, trying to help her go, whatever. But now she's riding all over the place, and I've figured out I can't just walk alongside a girl riding a bike. So I'm gonna have to fix that problem.
And it looks even worse if you're chasing.
No, believe me, I'm sure people have gotten that image in our neighborhood. I'm sorry, everybody. And lastly, favorite legal movie?
I'm going to go with Runaway Jury, just because it's
nice.
Filmed in my home state of Louisiana.
Yes.
And of course, John Cusack, so dreamy. How can you not go with with Runaway Jury?
Oh, man, that's a great one. I'm so glad you said it. I think you're the first one to mention it.
Oh, really?
But it has been on our short list of movies to do our deep dives into. And so I was kind of waiting until someone said. I was hoping someone would. I did not plant that on you. So thank you for saying that, because I'm excited to do that one as well. And Gene Hackman's one of my all-time favorite actors.
Oh, man.
So that's a perfect one. Well, great. Well, James, thank you again so much for taking the time to be with us. Appreciate you sharing these thoughts, and it's fun to catch up.
Yeah, it was great to talk to you, Daniel.
All right. My thanks again to James Howard for joining us on the show today. If you enjoyed this episode, would you consider doing 2 quick things? Would you subscribe so you don't miss an episode? And then would you go into iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts and rate and review the show? We'd love for you to do that. Appreciate those of you that have been doing that more recently. We've seen quite a bit of it, and so we're excited for that. Thank you so much. If you have suggestions or thoughts about the show, then please shoot me an email, daniel@varsitysearch.com. Would love to hear your thoughts. We are going to be getting back to adding some movie verdicts episodes in the future, in near future. And so we're very excited about that. I've heard a couple of people ask about that. So yes, we will be, we kind of had a break. We had, I guess, like a mini season in the winter. And now we are going to look forward to having another season of Movie Verdicts podcast soon. So thanks for that. And we'll be getting that to you hopefully very soon. And then lastly, as mentioned in the intro, if you or someone you know might benefit from some career counseling, career advice, or some thoughts on the market, or if there's opportunities that you'd be interested in learning more about, anything like that, happy to share anything that we know and our resources with you. So please go to varsitysearch.com/lawyers, and you can book a time to visit there at the bottom of that page. So, all right, that's it for today's episode of Lone Star Lawyers. Thanks again so much to each of you for being here and listening. I'm Daniel Hare with Varsity Search, and we'll talk with you next time.